Hello, it's LaShawn from Rooted and Reckless, and I am here to give a 2-week update on the plants that I received from Ecuador. And so let's start with our gift plant. So this is the Confetti Syngonium, and I didn't actually order this plant. This plant was actually received as one of the gifts along with the other plants. If you recall, when I first received this plant, it had several yellow leaves, and I did have to prune those off immediately. This plant is comprised of 3 separate stems, each of them having, upon arrival, at least 2 to 3 leaves on each stem. The roots did have some varying range of damage, anywhere from moderate to mild. And I did end up doing a hydrogen peroxide soak for about 5 minutes or so on the roots just to help them recover. Since I've placed it in the greenhouse, after the first day when I took it out to check on it, I did notice that the huge leaf, the larger leaf, did have significant yellowing, and ultimately I did end up having to prune that leaf after about the 2nd or 3rd day. That left just this leaf, which continued to have a little bit of drooping, but it maintained its full color. It still has green. You can still see the pink kind of confetti looking markings on it. And it also has another leaf that is attempting to kind of separate itself from the main stem. Lastly, it does have a little bit of brown on the bottom of the stem. It arrived that way, and I'm really not sure as to whether that is like a bark-like discoloration, or is it a sign of decreased water and nutrients. Again, it arrived that way, and this is also the stem that had the larger leaf that was attached to it. So I'm leaning more towards it's looking like a bark or a natural feature, and not the discoloration is not related to lack of nutrients or water. The last thing I'll say about this is that it does have 2 other stems, and those stems are doing perfect. They remain upright, they remain firm and sturdy, and the leaves on them actually have great color. And in fact, one of the leaves that was completely rolled tight upon arrival has unfurled up for about 50%. It still has the other 50% to fully open, but it has great color, great pink confetti looking markings on it, and I look forward to seeing how it will continue to grow. This plant will stay in the greenhouse with a humidity between 80 and 100%, at least until we see one more leaf attempt to emerge, and that will give me a really good indication that the roots are starting to grow and stabilize to support the plant. Now let's move on to probably one of my favorites of this batch of plants, and that is my El Choco Red Philodendron. If you remember, when this plant arrived, it had 5 leaves, and one of the leaves was a yellowish orange color, severely discolored, and ultimately I ended up pruning it upon arrival. The roots on this one were also moderately damaged, so I did have to do some pruning to the roots, and I did do a hydrogen peroxide soak on the roots of this one as well. I put it in the greenhouse under 80 to 100% humidity for the first night, and when I checked on it the next morning, there was a second leaf that had yellowed out and oranged, and I did end up pruning that leaf as well. Since then, these other leaves look really good. They have not discolored. They still have the very dark green on the front, and then they have a dark red hue in the back. There is some physical damage to the front of the 2 of the leaves, and that hasn't spread or anything. I think that probably came as a part of the transporting and from Ecuador to here. It appears to be another leaf that is looking like it's peeking out through the sheath. And so the plan is to keep this again in the greenhouse under 80 to 100% humidity, at least until I am able to see that leaf fully emerge and unfurl. Last thing that I'll mention is that I also noticed this having a little bit of like mold or fungi, probably mold, on the top And so I did clear the topsoil off. It's on a very chunky mix with bark and charcoal and perlite and a little bit of non-peat soil. But I sprinkled some cinnamon on top, and that has worked very well to eliminate any future kind of mold or fungus, I'm not really sure, growth that occurs sometimes when you're in a high humidity setting. So again, this is doing well, and I do hope to put this plant on a stake so that it can climb. But I want to make sure again that the roots are stabilized before I do that. All right, let's talk about our two friends, our two Monstera Adansonii. So as you know, I ordered two of these, and the root condition on these varied drastically between the two. I'll talk about this one first. First, I'll say that the roots were severely damaged. And in fact, I cut a considerable amount of the roots off. And the remaining roots were okay. And so I did end up using a little bit of growth hormone. I let it soak in there just to kind of really help the remaining smaller pieces of the roots. These leaves arrived having a little bit of dryness on them, and they still do have that, and the color does appear to be fading, and it did have a little bit of a droop to it. Not this much. It is definitely more than when it arrived, and that's probably because of the significant pruning to the roots that had to be done. But what I will say is that it's been 2 weeks, and it is still hanging in there. It still does have some green to it. And so I have continued to keep it in the greenhouse. It is at 80 to 100% humidity. And it is, again, like I said, it's still alive. It's still hanging in there. And I'm hoping that it will at some point shoot a new leaf out, and that will have a vibrant color, and it will also be firm and sturdy and won't be drooping as these leaves are. I do have a stake to help give it a little bit of support. This plant, along with the other two that I mentioned before, have not received any nutrients during this time, but what they have received is some yucca and some probiotics in their water, again, just to really help them during this recovery time. The second Monstera Adansonii was actually doing a lot better. It still had some damage to the roots, but significantly less compared to its partner. And as you could see, it has a lot less drooping. In fact, probably no drooping to the leaves. They're all standing up. I do have a stake to support it, but I almost feel like I could take the stake off because there really is no pruning. The leaves are all pretty firm and upright. The color is not great. It does still have a faded color, but it is a little bit more green than when it arrived. I don't see any new growth coming from the plant yet. And so it will continue to stay in the greenhouse at a humidity of 80 to 100% until such time that it starts to show some emergence of new growth. And the last plant that I'll give the update on is going to be our King Vichy. So I was very impressed with this plant when it arrived. As I mentioned, the leaves are huge. I mean, they're larger than the size of my hand. They continue to look really, really good. The color is vibrant. There is really no physical damage to the plants. One small little nick on one of the leaves, but other than that, it looks really, really good. There isn't any semblance of any new growth, both within the roots and or within any new kind of stalk emerging from it. It does have also a very chunky soil mix that is there. The roots really arrived, not only were they just significant, they were all in really great shape. And so I do expect that this plant will do very well once it is acclimated. It's not in the greenhouse because my greenhouse doesn't have enough room for this. So I do have it in a bag, a humidity bag that basically encloses the entire plant, and it stays anywhere from 80 to 100% humidity in that bag. I do open it up intermittently during the day or take it out for small periods of time so that it can just, not be at 100% humidity for multiple days in a row. It is responding well, and just like the other plants, I have not given it any nutrients, only some probiotics and yucca in the water, but no actual fertilizer. And so again, this plant will stay in the humidity bag until it starts to show some new growth, new leaves emerging. So otherwise, all of the plants are still alive. I did have to do some pruning of some of the plants of the leaves. But other than that, I anticipate that they're going to continue this transition. They're all still going to be either in the greenhouse or the humidity bag. And I look forward to giving you another update in a couple of weeks on how my plants from Ecuador are doing. Stay tuned.